Hey guys, welcome to this exclusive members video here at YouTube, where this week what I'm going to do is, rather than create a new tutorial just yet, I'm going to do a few sessions where I'm going to show you the behind the scenes of things. So this week is my latest single called Hipness, which came out on my Wax This label last month. You can hear it on Spotify, etc., wherever you want to go for it. So what I thought I would do is I would break down the track, show you how I've made it so that you can take some of the techniques and the tips and some of the sounds and ideas from this for your own productions. It's always good to, take inspiration from others. And not only that, it's difficult sometimes to understand what the others have done in order for you to do that. Even when you've got a reference track, it's difficult to understand certain things. So I'm going to break down my latest track and I'm going to give you the insight into it so that you can take whatever you want from this and use it and apply it to your own music, which is what we want to do. So the single is my track that's kind of like a jazz sort of disco record, and it goes like this. So if you've not heard it, you can check it out in the link below at Spotify. However, this single, I'm going to break it down for you and I'm going to show you how to make this sort of music. It's quite easy, quite straightforward. The techniques of it are, should I say. I'm not saying the playing of it is easy, obviously. I've had a lot of practice, but the question and answer, the way I do things, the way I've changed it from a sub bass into a disco bass, all those sorts of things. So let's just break it down first. Let's go with the drums first. So I've grouped all my drums. Something that I don't normally do, but on this occasion I did. It's got a really heavy kick drum. It's almost like a really boomy kick drum. And then some disco claps. It's almost like a breakbeat at the start with the off kick. And then some congas. The congas are just a loop. That's all it is. It's just a loop. And then the tops is this one. Just a shaky sort of clap. Double clap, so you've got the original clap there. So I'm just going to break down just the drums. Then we've got a tambourine loop, and that's it really. And then an open hi-hat and a crash. If you notice with the hi-hat, I've done the really short open 909, which I strongly recommend with tracks, because a 909 crash hi-hat, is got a lot of decay in it. If you want that in your techno, that's fine, but for that kind of house, you want it to be cut off, like really short, like that. And it just gives a cleaner cut in the mix. It cuts through in the mix a lot cleaner. So basically, they were the beats really, and I thought to myself, what can I do to make something slightly different, slightly edgy? So I've got myself a sub bass, and the sub bass I use is from the Surge. And it's in here. Look, the Surge is a free VST, by the way. You can get this pretty much anywhere. It's a brilliant open source synth, so I strongly recommend you get this as well. And it's in the sub pack there, and it's just like a... Now, with the sub, you've got to get the frequencies, kind of right, because obviously it's inaudible otherwise. And all I've done is, look, I could have gone up a bit higher, but I didn't want to push my luck too much. So I've kind of chopped it out, cut out the top end here, because there's nothing there anyway. But what I've done with this is I've sidechained it, okay, to a ghost kick. Here, look, you can see the pink one, which is a ghost kick. And I didn't want it to be just... I wanted it to have a bit of movement in it. So I put a saturator on there, and then I added the sidechain and dipped it. So you can hear the dip now. If I take it off, it's just too nasty. It's too jungly. Too, like, kind of old school sort of rave jungle sort of. If you sidechain it, it cuts through. So yeah, that's how I did the sub bass on that. At the start, we've got this pad. Sweeps up. And again, that comes from the free V Station, which is over here. If you've not got that yet, I recommend you get it. It's a completely free synth. It used to be a fee for it, but they're giving it away now over at Novation. So that's called Pad 6. And all I've done with that is just, if I play those pads, if I look at the pads themselves, and let me have a look at that. It's got that sweeping slow attack on it anyway. Really warm, really warm. And I put that with a normal high string. So the high string here comes from the side string. This is from the Cakewalk one, which if you're a Windows user, I recommend you get this. It's completely free over at BandLab. And this again, just had the high string, just the 2 notes, B flat and C. Put them on top of the pad. Just beautiful. Just flat notes, look. Some of them aren't even on time. I've left them to be kind of off quantized grid so that they come in because they're a slow sounding string anyway. So then there's a sub. So you've got that kind of build up. You've got a kind of like atmospheric, moody build up, which is what I wanted to create with the sub as well. It kind of gives it a bit of, you know, a bit of edginess. But then I wanted to obviously add my natural disco sort of funk vibe to it. So I got a brass sound from the Monopoly. The Monopoly you have to pay for, but there's loads of brass free synths out there. There's tons and tons. You can get some good ones with the Cheese Machine. That's free. And with some of the full bucket Korg replicas, there's loads of good ones in there. But I just added this lead sound, so this lead horde sound on top. Put a load of delay on it. And there you go. And that's the build up. But then obviously I wanted to add something else in there. So I got from the same pit of kick, the soft synth horn from the Monopoly again. And this is my stabbing sort of brass sound. And there you go, look. And I think I've done, if I have a look, I've done some cut off down here, look. Very slight, very subtle. And if we open it up, we can see, there, look. Just shakes it up. When it does the full, let me get the synth up. When it does the longer notes, so I've done a bit of cut off on it. So if I get the cut off up, you can see, look, the cut off is there. Sorry, the cut off, the attack. So the attack is slow and then it gets faster. So when it comes onto the longer notes, it's a slower. So it spins up. Whoops, it's what you want to do. What you want to do with there, look, is if you do this, look, if I take that across there and show you what I do here, look. So here you've got a fast attack on this one. There. So I mean, so this one, it's in straight away because there's no attack on it. But if you put a slow attack on it, on those notes that you hold down longer, see what I mean? It just gives it a lot more like a sweeping effect. Which is just, so that's a really nice thing to do, to give your sound movement. Very important thing to do. So that was that. And then over here we've got this solo wow, which is a great thing. It's from the F9 Disco pack, and it's the Disco wow. It's like a little kind of wacka guitar thing. And again, just EQ'd it, the guitars, took the bottom end out, and put some wide stereo on it just to bring it out in the mix more. If you find that you've got sounds that are not really pushing through, stick a stereo imager on there and it can generally work well. So, that's one way of looking at it. Next up then, we've got the classic superb Tyro, and I've got the boogie bass sound to act as kind of like a question and answer thing here with the synth horn. So if you put the synth horns on and the boogie bass, just cut it in on the last chord. Just so that they're not overdoing each other's, heading, so to speak. So that basically, I didn't want the Tyro to overpower the guitar and the brass, the synth horn. Just wanted it to come in just to every other chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Empty. So, if you're going to try and do that question and answer thing where you've got one synth going ding, 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 ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum. Two different sounds. One's on one side, one's on the other, but they're not clashing. That's the important thing. When you start layering things at the same time, then it gets mucky. So that was that. And then obviously the breakdown. The strings are still in there. With the strings, you just got to make sure you've got plenty of, you know, reverb on there, which I have, and, you know, just make them echoey sort of thing. And then I've got this famous speech here.
We've made a lot of records,
which I had to clean and cut up, which is Cannonball Adderley, and it's from a record he made in the 70s, a jazz album. And,
we've made a lot of records in nightclubs.
I just thought it fitted perfectly.
Especially in California.
Loads of
at
concert
the
hall.
famous Lighthouse.
Cut all the
Hermosa
bottom end
Beach,
out, look, so you get all of that
and
muck
at the
out.
Jazz Workshop in San Francisco.
That's natural.
And the reason we selected those rooms
You hear
was
the hum
because
and everything.
the audiences were so hip that we could, you know, just play what we want to play without being bothered, and everybody dug it, you see. We've never made a live album in New York because...
And I've had to chop that up to get rid of all the gaps in between each phrase, you see. So you put that in there. But then the next thing, I suppose, really is where we start to build it back up, but then we change directions and we add a disco bass. So I've kind of gone two ways here. I've got the subby bass and the new jazz sort of feel with it. And then it goes off into a disco vibe completely.
Applause or appreciation.
Sub bass comes back in.
It's the atmosphere. You know, you get a lot of people who are supposed to be hip.
The synth comes back in.
You know, and they act like they're supposed to be hip, which makes a big difference. You see what I mean? Now we have especially been impressed with the...
And then here, at this point, this is where the track drops all the beats out here, look, except the claps here. Look, you've got the kicks drop out. I think that's important to drop out your kicks, say the last 4 or the last 8, so that you can have that transition into the next part of the track. So what I've done here is if I just solo...
Decide you're hip. It just happens that way. You see what I mean? Hipness is not a state of mind. It's a fact.
And then this bass comes in. Live disco bass. The Nash Funky bass, which again from the F9 series. In fact, it isn't from the F9 series. My bad. It's from the Rickenbacker bass from Within Contact. So maybe I used that originally and changed it over, but that's why it's still got the same name. But no, that bass is the Rickenbacker. My apologies there. And then it comes in like a proper octave disco bass. But how it works is like this, look, it comes in over the sub as well. So you've got the sub bass building up, but then you want to take it to a different direction, add a disco bass.
Decide you're hip. It just happens that way. You see what I mean? Hipness is not a state of mind. It's a fact of life.
And then the lead line on top, the lead horn, this bit. And then the strings come back in with the guitar and the pads. And then again, off it goes at the end. And then what happens is we have this solo section with the bass and the lead horn. And then when that trills off like that and goes zing, and it disappears with its glissando, then the boogie bass comes back in again and it comes back full circle. And all the while the bass is playing on top of the sub. And then instead of having the bass come to the end of the track and take the bass all the way to the end, then drums, sometimes get rid of the bass and just have the string or a pad or something. It just gives it a different dimension, like this. Look. So the bass drops and then goes, but the string continues. So you've ended up back how you started.
Mind, it's a fact of life.
And that's how that works, basically. So basically, that's all I wanted to show you this week was how to, you know, create a kind of jazzy disco-y track by using very little, which as you can see, I've only got 18 tracks in there. I mean, obviously, my drums take up about 8 of those anyway. So, and then one's a side chain. So, you know, you've got very little. You've got a string, 1 horn, 2 horns, a guitar wah-wah, a boogie bass synth, and a sub bass. And that's it. And I'm always trying to promote to you not to have 70 tracks, you know, well, let's be realistic, 25, 30, 40 tracks in a mix. It's just too much and it can be overwhelming. And that's why a lot of people tend not to finish tracks because they've got too much to mix down and it becomes overwhelming. Don't be a victim of that. Just try to minimize everything you do and you get a lot more power out of it. I mean, listen to this, 18 tracks, 10 of which are drums pretty much. So it's got a lot of power in it. You know, and then obviously on the flip side of that, you've got to make sure you pan your instruments. As you can see here, the strings pan to the right, the horns pan to the right, the lead horns pan to the left, the guitar to the right, and the boogie bass thing. The bass are kept central. Always keep your bass central, usually. And the drums, keep them central, you know, unless you've got... actually, I don't think the drums are central. I'm talking nonsense there. My crashes to the right, my tambourines to the left, congas to the right, and the claps to the left, you know. Split them up slightly, but certain things obviously keep your kick central. Generally keep your open hi-hat central, but everything else you can push slightly to the right or the left. You know, give it a bit of breadth, a bit of space, a bit of width. And then that's about it really. On the group channel, as you can see, I've got a compressor and an EQ on the group, which I've kind of done an overall sort of cut off at the bottom look, and then brought in overall just a little bit of an extra layer on the drums, so they don't clip. And a saturator, a soft sine stuck on there. What you should do is on the soft sine, take it down 1 dB and add a dB on the drive. So if every 1 decibels you'd add, take 1 down. And then keep your eyes on that master. So yeah, that's it this week's session. I'm going to walk through another track next week. But I want you to just kind of take these ideas, take a string, get a brass, get a guitar, get a synth, and get a sub bass maybe, and a pad, and just try and make a track out of that. Drum wise, look at the drums: a kick, claps, congas, a tops loop, tambourine, crash, and a hi-hat, and that's it. Don't be doing any more than that. You don't need to. So yeah, hopefully you've got a load of stuff from that, and I will see you next week where we'll do another one. Thank you guys. Any questions, give me a shout, anything at all, and I'll be there for you. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.